Hello, and welcome to the Lifting the Veil podcast with your host, myself, Adrienne Lopez, the Integrative Healing Coach, for soul healing conversations, guests, and topics that support you in unveiling the true nature of your consciousness so you can embrace your destiny and not suffer your fate. If you hear something today that resonates with you, please don't forget to like, share, comment, or subscribe. It really helps support the growth and reach of this podcast by increasing listenership, which makes this whole endeavor possible. Please sit back, relax, and get ready for this week's episode starting shortly, entitled Between Two Worlds, where I share a more expansive model of self, a type of soul ecology I compare to the process of germination. Thanks for listening. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Lifting the Veil podcast with myself, your host, Adrienne Lopez, the Integrative Healing Coach, and the creator and founder of the Mind Heart Space Academy, where I provide courses, content, practices, and tools to support you in living your best life. And this week, the topic I am pulling up that has been coming up in my life in the events, situations, relationships, connections, coaching is around being between two worlds and choosing to lift off, choosing to choose one. So this has been showing up in a couple layers in my life. So that's just the way I operate. That's the way I download information in images, pictures, archetypes, themes, and then that filters down into my consciousness, and it takes form into thoughts and stories and words that I come on and share with you. So just a couple of, I guess you could call them realizations about my own consciousness and my own process, and everything that it's taken for me to come here to be speaking with you and creating this podcast and creating the Mind Heart Space Academy. It's like behind the stage, so to speak, of all the dark nights of the soul, all the integration, all the transformation, all the shadow work, all of that commitment to health, wellness, to growth, to clarity, to integrity, to honoring, to relationship. And primarily that has turned out to be relationship with self before others. And so this piece is around coming into claiming, to owning, to fully embodying the way I receive energy and information from the universe, from the universal source, that one source. And funny enough, this new year, every new year, I like to create a ritual around looking at the last 12 months, the year before, celebrations, obstacles, lessons, and just like harvesting all of the content from the year before and my growth, and then taking time to celebrate myself and my growth and share it with others and help celebrate their growth and the things that they're learning and the obstacles that they've overcome and the expansiveness of their own consciousness. And so this year I chose the word source in the context of Zazen, which to my understanding is that place at the door of source that is neither grasping or pushing away. And I chose that word because for me it felt like coming home into the into my connection with myself on every single level. And that's what's been happening in ways that I didn't foresee, right? But when you make an intention, when you create a commitment, life starts delivering in the ways that you didn't have access to, because if you did, you would have done it already, right? So this has strands around my speaking, my thinking, how information is like dawns on me and then becomes more granular. The impulses behind that, the resistances behind that at every level. And it's some intense processes going on. And it's not all love and light. Through my journey, through my natural demeanor, I've been accused of being a Pollyanna, of being all rainbows and light. And that is not the case. I think that's probably what I end up projecting, just because that is a note of my soul signature, which is joy, which is love, which is positivity. And I grew up in a setting that didn't really acknowledge the darker aspects of existence, the pain, the suffering, the addiction, the narcissism, the compulsivity, the codependence, all of that. And so I have spent the majority of my life in my own process, on my own spiritual healing journey, and supporting others and being in service to others out of what I've harvested through my own experience, to support others in becoming aware of what's driving them, and whether it's a true expression or it's like an ego construct based in less than loving foundations. And so back to this topic where I first started moments ago, in regards to the clarity, the insight that I have been receiving around how I receive information. And this is on one level become pertinent as I have been developing and growing my intuitive and psychic abilities that have always been there. But I had to turn them down, cut them off, shut them down. And so it's so fascinating and such a gift in a way to be able to observe the intelligence called me that made these decisions, mostly unconscious, but in the service of life, to support the adaptability in order to fit in, to belong. And so this is where, and I'm sharing this all with you because it's not just about me. This is a collective process we're all going through. And my unique expression of it might not be your brand, but you have your own expression of the same process. And so I think I was brushing my teeth the other night, and I was just like when life catches up with itself, like you ever seen that like effect in movies where there's just like a tunnel of like all these different versions of you, and then they all just snap into place. Like they all catch up on the same timeline. They all get integrated into the present moment. And so while I was brushing my teeth, that's what happened. And specifically, it was about how I process life force information and all the ways that I was restricted from doing that because it didn't match the model of my caretakers. And so this taking on of this outside force to shape my own relationship to my life force, which wasn't necessarily natural or mine, but I took it on because that's what we did in my family. And it was very mental, it was very analytical. It was separate, right? Separation from self. And so I realized, like I just had like all of these moments throughout my life of like, oh, that's what that was, of recognition. And especially as a reading teacher who worked for a specialized educational company that had done, was doing research on neuroplasticity in the brain and how we process information and how targeted practices light up new parts of the brain. And this is related to meaning, like reading is related to language and how the brain processes information and pictures and words and sounds. And I was drawn to it for a reason, like, intuitively, because this was my work, and I just like got like even my throat chakra and how I've been learned, how I've been learned, how I've learned to speak, and all of the distortions around speaking and listening. But in regards to my experience in teaching reading, it was it was feedback loop. And so it was like a one-on-one, and it was a mirroring technique where consciousness is observing consciousness correct itself. And it wasn't about the content per se, it was more about the process of having another person in front of you, giving you, attuning to them, attuning to that person so that they could pick up the download of the information and start entraining it in their brain in a way that wasn't naturally an expression of who they were. But this is a little different than, say, regular socialization, and how that happens at school and everywhere. So me being an extremely expansive people pleaser, I was able to adapt to these foreign modes of learning, even though they weren't natural to me. I took them on as like as like part of my entrance into a community. And I didn't have the awareness or the consciousness as a child, the cognitive ability to process, the linguistic ability to process what was actually happening. And so to the level in which this information attunement is happening. And so the other night when I was brushing my teeth, the depth of all of the layers of how this has affected my consciousness and how I show up in regards to using my energy in a really effective way for my natural inclinations and how I naturally process information. So I've gotten to the point in my life where those adaptive ways that I took on to navigate the world and live caught up to my nervous system and were making me ill on every level. And totally burnt out and exhausted, because I am taking on a outside adaptive funnel for my energy, and I've been using that like as a natural adaptation, but it's kind of like, gosh, I'm so bad with like mechanics and like metaphors like that, but it's like it was converting my energy in a way that worked in this 3D world, but it was like based on structure, and that's not my first mode of being naturally. I use perception, and then that perception comes down and goes into my behavior and then creates structures. But there's like, when you don't know that, it's like there's a piece missing. There's like a leak in the energy system that's getting siphoned off. And so this has been a really deep yet subtle healing process for me personally in regard. And like I said, this is so individual, but it's not, because we all have our own version of this. That is below the waterline of consciousness. And another way that this has shown up for me, and the two worlds that I'm talking about, is I have one foot in the old way, like I'm still going back. My ego still goes back to it because that's what it was formed in. And then there's the more authentic expression, which is my natural blueprint, which does not, I still haven't downloaded the whole in my body. It's there, but I'm still missing a piece. And it has taken me this last 3 years to go to create the stillness and the safety and the quietness in my life, to go back and heal what I'm calling is that Mars energy, that action energy, because how I was acting was coming out of like not being plugged into the full access of source. And so astrology is so interesting to me because of the metaphors of the psyche. Like Mars is your will, and it has to do with your will in this 3D world. But Mars also has a higher octave, which is Pluto, and Pluto is the destroyer, the transformer, and that energy is psychic, right? It's connected to all that is. It represents the unconscious, or Hades, all the repressed material. And it's not, the repressed material also holds all of your gifts and your potential, which they don't tell you about, right? It's, Hades is connected to hell and the devil. And it's really just everything that's really all it is everything that's repressed in your body, which is unconscious. That's driving your life, which are those unconscious compulsions. And I want to give you an example of compulsions in regards. I'm going to give you the example to speaking, because that's what's showing up in my life right now around my throat chakra. So when one is disconnected from from being fully plugged in to source in a way that's in alignment with your natural blueprint, then not only does one leak energy, but then you have to go outside of yourself to get energy. And what keeps it in place at a fundamental level is shame, guilt, fear, trauma. So, how's that manifesting? So, as a super sensitive, empathic, connected being that comes into the body. I was not able ever to fully come in because of the pre-programming that I received in the womb, connected to shame, deep shame around being fully connected, to fully knowing, to having full sovereignty and authority of one's own knowing. Like that was not allowed. And so you can't plug into source in the physical body if you're not fully embodied, because you're not allowed. So it's a catch-22 of, it's like I can't come fully into my body because who I am on this planet isn't allowed. And this is a third part that I wanted to share with you around this incredible divine creatrix energy that's coming on the planet, the divine feminine. And this is the process of this knowing that goes beyond the intellect, that was shamed, made wrong, ridiculed, banished. People were killed for it. People were devalued, made wrong, invalidated, called crazy. And so this is a huge collective wound around this type of deep feminine knowing, whether you're in a feminine body or not. What I'm talking about are energies that we all have, both feminine and masculine. And the surface level of what we've been given in return, and I've spoken about this in my other podcasts regarding the divine feminine. For just one example in my life, I was my extremely deep psychic power was minimized into superficial expressions. So, for example, I entered into the beauty industry where I did hair and I did makeup, which I loved, right? But that's such a superficial expression of the feminine, where women are reduced to what they look like. And this is all a metaphor for the divine feminine, because women embody this energy most, that women are concerned about things that are taking their energy away from their true power, which is how they look, having their bodies mutilated, lips puffed up to here, out to there, I should say. And that has like a currency of, that's your power in the world. It's been reduced to your ability to be alluring to a man. And it just is one example of how we've all bought into it, like I bought into it. And one thing about being a people pleaser and having shame at the very core of your existence is the issue of self-worth, And so when you are like your whole being is compromised because you're questioning your self-worth because you can't fully embody the full power of who you are. And then the whole system has you looking at like, well, how big are your lips? how, whatever. What does your body look like? And let's put it on display all over social media to where people are so distracted. I don't really look at other people's social media. And I did recently, and I was like, oh, heck. I, I guess I should be showing some more TNA, because that's what many people are doing. And in regards to letting other people determine their value, and it's a collective disease of putting our worth outside other people's, social validation, and it's intense, and I naturally was a person that has a huge context of reality. I have a big picture that I've noticed a lot of people do not share. They're more granular and looking at this 3D world through a perspective of reality that is tailored around other people validating you, giving you acknowledgement, acceptance. And nothing's the matter with that. It's, we all want to belong. We all want to be loved. We all want to be accepted. But there's something more than that has to do with having integrity, honoring your relationship with yourself. That is priceless, that no matter how many people around you give you accolades or an award or money, that can fulfill that internally. And so there's a huge pull to keep that lens on over your eyes, to view yourself that way. And I'm saying this because me too, nothing, I'm not excluding myself. I'm actually speaking from personal experience, and created this space to help create clarity and empower myself and others to create the kind of world, create the kind of space, like claim your space and how you want to be held in the world with love and honor and respect and adoration. And that comes from our internal relationship with ourselves. And part of this process is really painful because I can speak from my own experience, attracting really narcissistic people and being their ideal supply because of my lack of self-worth, my lack of self-belief, and the devaluing of how extremely powerful that I am, and not ever quite getting it, because that's part of the invalidation that takes place. But in the process of magnetizing narcissistic people to me, that was the only way I was able to not only see my worth, but was to reclaim my worth and then turn around and support those narcissists who believe that they have to get their power from outside of themselves through domination, through manipulation, through using other people's energy, which is a dead end street, let's just say. And so, a lot of times narcissists get like they're the worst. But you know what? The people that attract the attractors of the narcissist are just a mirror image of the opposite. And so this is a balancing process that happens internally. And when each of us begins to rebalance, that's the definition of health, homeostasis. Not that it's perfect all the time, right? We have to go way out in order to find middle again. And so it's a process. But the word that came to me, I think it was probably, I don't know if it was the same night I was brushing my teeth or the night before, but I woke up and the word was germination. And such a interesting word. But I wanted to share that with you because I think that it provides a different model or a whole different way of thinking about our power than the one that we have had. And this is the difference between the two worlds. And so for those of you that didn't know, I had an idea what germination is. It's like when a seed is getting ready to grow. But some key aspects that I wanted to add is that the seed has everything that it needs to create the adult plant, the adult tree, the highest potential of its fulfilled expression. Like that's all in the seed. And the seed doesn't grow until all the conditions are right. And this is the germination process. And it is what you could call a waking up of resources. And that's exactly what has been my personal experience. What I'm noticing as I work with others in their process, it isn't a hustle. It isn't a go out there and discipline yourself into it. It is a waking up of a dormant state, and it starts to grow. And so seeds are these self-contained mechanisms. They contain everything that they need. It's not outside of them, it's inside, to get themselves this important trigger. And where does this trigger come from? Where is this trigger? It's nothing that you can see with your eyes. It's nothing you can possess or go buy on Amazon. These are natural progressions of intelligent life force unfolding when the season and the time is right. Now, everyone has a different timeline. Every soul on this planet has a different journey and germination process. Some people germinate and sprout when they're young. Some people wait, their soul waits later in life to germinate and to spring into that fullest expression of potential, to gather the learning processes, the experience, the knowledge, the downloads, the wisdom. And it's like everywhere we go, all the people we meet hold important informational, energetic exchanges with us that begin to add a piece to those inner resources that are gathering. There's a gathering happening until that dormant resource wakes up in you. And for those of you that have had an experience, we all have had this experience on different levels, and we might have multiple germinations. Did I say that right? That word sounds so funny to me sometimes when I say it. Germination. Yeah, that's it. Just sounded funny for a minute. We might have multiple germinations, developing different aspects of our soul lessons and our journey. And so this way of seeing things isn't an outside timeline that other people have put on you that measure your social currency and status and level of acceptance. Because we're all on different roads, we're all on different growth journeys and arcs. And so when we have an outside attempt of standards, of ways of living our lives that other people tell us that we need to abide by, that outside structure put onto the life force. And, you know, when I had that aha moment when I was brushing my teeth, I just felt an incredible level of rage rising up in me of all the times I was told, no, not like that. No, that's wrong. No, do this. And the level of arrogance that it takes for another person. And it's not even arrogance, because that implies consciousness. It's a level of unconsciousness that projects its meaning-making machine onto you as the way. But the way is unique and individual to each person and their germination process, with all of the resource that they brought with them in this lifetime. Just like the seed, you are provided for, you are taken care of, you have all that you need inside of you. And so this is the difference between the world in which I first stepped into in this lifetime, believing that this external reality and its imprints could somehow give me a sense of meaning, value, satisfaction, love. And if you're like me, like many people who are noticing perhaps for the first time that that's not how it works. The soul was meant to be free, to express itself, to know its own way of being in the world. And this force of structure put onto people, and I saw it, right, in education. The group of kids and adults that I was working with were considered to have learning deficits, learning disabilities, labeled on the spectrum, right, from ADHD to Asperger's and everything in between. When in actuality, they just have a different frequency of downloading information that didn't match the norm. And how wrong they've been made by being given a diagnosis of other than normal. And how do we do that in so many different ways to ourselves, to each other, in families, to where each individual's unique contributions and gifts and talents are forced into, or attempted to be forced into, pre-existing boxes that fit into this version of reality, even if it's reducing the potential of that individual. And that's life denying, and that's painful, and that's tragic. And so, and it just is what it is, right? At the end of the day, until it's not anymore. And so part of my vision creating the Mind Heart Space Academy was, as I mentioned earlier, is creating a place to normalize these conversations, to investigating each individual's own unique connection to source, how you process information, how you express that in your life, the unique expressions that are your gifts and talents and bring you joy at the highest level. And I can't think of anything greater than that. And so I am fully committed to this work and claiming this social space for each person to show up in their full creative potential and expansive creative expression, and the gifts that makes available to all of humanity. And and this really came up in regards to the full moon in Cancer, which is this like invisible waters of our emotions and energy, and the structures that hold that energy, which is Capricorn, and how all of those structures are so sorry, it was the full moon in Capricorn. The opposite side of sign of Capricorn is Cancer, which is the emotional waters of life and source. And the full moon, Capricorn, the structures that hold that. And all of the structures that are breaking down right now because they're no longer serving the evolutionized expression. They've cemented, they've bound in certain restrictive ways of being that do not allow for the full intelligence of life to be expressing in a way that's being called for now at this time in our evolution, our unique individual life expression, and how that's held in the world through the structures. And it is based on giving oneself permission to fully embody and attune to the life energy that wants to move through you in the way that it wants to move through you, instead of letting outside expectations and structures determine what that is. So that's what I meant by the title today, Between Two Worlds. We're in the process of stepping from that old way of being in the world that limited what's possible, because it was in service of structure. And when the structure begins to be creating more dis-ease, more disharmony, more upset, more dysfunction than health, then that's a sign that we've outgrown those structures and that we need to create a whole new relationship to structure and how those structures can best represent and honor the integrity of our relationship with life itself. And I think I'll leave it there for now. I'd be interested to know if anything I shared today resonated with you, or if you have any questions. If you do, please put them into the comments. You can also send me instant message, a personal message on any of my social media platforms, including my Facebook page, Mind Heart Space Facebook page, and my Instagram, as well as my website, where you can find my email there. If you'd like to find out more about working with me, uncovering your own magical brand of self-expression for the germination of your soul, you can reach out to me. I have lots of different packages and options to choose from that would work for you and your own unique needs. So until next time, please remember what a valuable treasure you are. And I hope you had an incredible 4th of July if you're in the States celebrating, and remembering that you are a star. You are a star light, lighting up this world with your own beauty, your own magnificence, your own wisdom. And so until next time, I'll see you later. Bye for now.